All right. Let's do one more round for Scott Filmer, who did such a great job working on these videos tonight. That man put a lot of time and effort in that, and we're grateful. We appreciate it so much. And I love seeing a video like that because, one, for all of us to be able to see kind of an encompassing look at a whole year of ministry is important. You know, because sometimes we only see sections of what happens in our church, and sometimes we don't get to really take in the whole thing. And I love that you get to see that and celebrate it and know that you're a part of it. And then also, I love it. It is important for me because it's like I've said before, ministry has no finish line. It's just like this constant looking ahead and going to the next thing and doing things that doesn't produce immediate fruit, that's just sort of fruit that will grow in the kingdom, one day that we get to see. But when I go back and I look over a year's worth of ministry, I feel that sense of accomplishment that God wants us to feel in terms of what we do, that we are doing things, right? That we are contributing to God's kingdom growing on this earth, that we are changing lives for eternity, that it is happening in real time. And it has happened throughout this last year. And it has happened because all of you in our whole church said, yes, we want to do it. We want to make it happen. Whatever God wants us to do, that's where we want to go. And so I always think about this verse, these words that Paul wrote to the church at Philippi to express his gratitude to them for how he felt about his partnership and what they were doing. And he said, I thank my God every time I remember you. In all my prayers for all you do, I always pray with joy because of your partnership in the gospel from the first day until now, being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus. And I feel very much the same about what we get to do together, that we are partnered in the work of leading people to know and serve Jesus in this community and around the world. And that is a very special and important thing. So thank you right off the bat for what you do, for how you give, for how you serve, for how you love people, for how you participate here at this church. It is amazing. I love being the pastor here. I can tell you that. I am so grateful to do this work with you. And so it's just good stuff. All right, one more number. One thing that makes this whole thing happen is what we do every week on Sundays right here. It takes an army of volunteers to pull off just what we do on a weekly basis. And I was thinking about another number, and you can just put that list up there. It takes about 150 people per week to do what we do on a Sunday morning. Worship team, production team, counting team, kids, youth, college, ushers, parking lot, guest services, and so on and so forth. So many people involved in making that happen. And it really is just an army. And on Sunday mornings, I love just watching all of you running around doing stuff, and especially those guys in the orange vests who go out there and risk their life in the parking lot. Man, I appreciate them so much. Don't run over them. Be nice to them. If it's really tight and tough and you can't find a place, be gracious to them. Man, they're doing it. They're working. Everybody works with our kids. Working with kids, boy, that's special calling right there. Working with our youth or whatever. Y'all just give so much on that weekly basis to make this happen, to make it an environment where people can come, people who are coming from who knows where and what's going on in their life, brokenness or hardship or pain, and maybe we're the last stop for them. Have you ever thought about that? Some people are coming and, man, this is like, I'm at the end of my rope. If God doesn't do something, I don't know what I'm going to do, and I'm going to try that Cornerstone Church. And I feel the weight of that every week here. And that's why it's so important that we create an environment where that person can come and they can feel like they're a part of what's happening here, that we can extend extravagant generosity to them or radical hospitality or whatever they need on that day, that they will come in and go, you know what, there's something special going on here. Look at these people. Look at the smiles on their face. Look at the way they greeted me and handled my children and how they helped me worship, or they spoke to me through the word, or I got a chance to pray, or something impacted that person on that day, and they said, you know what, I'm good to go. Because I know there is a God who loves me, and He can help me. Now, friend, that's a good day when we do that, right? So that's every Sunday, okay? That is like every Sunday. Though that's kind of some weighty stuff. That's like a big deal. So anyway, it takes an army of volunteers. We have slots, by the way. We really do. If Jill Harris were standing right here, she would take up the next hour telling you about that. And she would love to have more people helping her and her little army of folks back in our kids' area, and they always need more folks to jump in. So if you're not plugged in yet and you're looking for a place, Jill Harris would love to train you and get you ready and serving back there. Marcus, I know if you had a minute to stand up here, which you don't, sorry, brother, although you will be up at the end, so don't be taking any of my time, all right? If he were up here, he'd say, man, youth and college, come talk to me. If you have any leaning toward youth and college, he would love to plug you in and get you involved. Or Suzanne and Julia with the guest services. You know what? It takes a lot of people to smile at people on Sunday morning and greet them and make sure they have a card and, and help people feel that warm environment, to have the experience that we need them to have. So anyway, if you're not serving in any place right now, we'd love for you to plug in. If you are serving, have served, have contributed in any way to what we're doing around here, again, thank you. It is changing lives for eternity, helping us grow the kingdom of heaven right here on earth. And man, wasn't it so good to see those kids baptized this morning? I mean, it's good to see anybody baptized anytime, but I don't know. Today it was just really heartwarming to see that happen. And again, for Troy, to 9 years of me getting to be involved in his life and watching that happen from christening to then him choosing Christ and being baptized, and just watching the church's impact in our children's life. And making sure that we're also taking care of the next generation. That's so big and so important. So that's all good. Everything you do brings together those moments. So this last year was awesome. That video kind of gave us a look at what 2018 was all about. If I had to put a word on it, it would just simply be awesome and generous. And there was a lot of serving, a lot of generosity, a lot of good things happened. We had a renewed focus in Uganda and have made some great strides there. We're going to get back into Nicaragua. They had to kind of shut things down for a little bit, but we're looking ahead there. Wind shape, as the kids were talking about, was just phenomenal this past year. I mean, the biggest wind shape we've had. And gosh, I wish you could all watch what happens during that week. It takes a lot of work, by the way, but it's a lot of kids who come and they get to hear the love of Jesus Christ, and they're having an awesome time, and they're learning these skills, and it is amazing. We're actually going to have a bigger one this year. They're adding a kindergarten group to it. I'm like, what? What are we going to do with kindergartners? But anyway, so yeah, great. Thanks a lot. So we're going to need more people. And I realize this happens during the day when most of you are working. But man, if you can give us some time that week, let Jill know. She would love to know that, because we want to plug you in. And also the scholarships that you give, I mentioned that this morning, helps children to come to that camp who would never be able to go. And that's big. That's huge. So I appreciate that. School stuff, what we did for the schools, Lynn Haven, Uganda, again, it just shows of extravagant generosity. And let me just say this, also what you do through your weekly giving, what we do through the offering and in your online giving, let's not forget how important that is and how vital that is to just pumping life into the ministries of this church and keeping us going. And I just want you to know that when we give in that way, it's not just about keeping the lights on and keeping the air conditioning on and the heat on and all that stuff, although that's important, and we want air conditioning, heat, and lights, and everything. But man, it's paying our staff who do a phenomenal job around here in training leaders and keeping ministry going. It's funneled into things that happen with our kids' ministry, and it helps them relate to God. I mean, so many things are going on all the time through the weekly giving that we do. And that is an important part. Like I've said before, we are on mission. We don't have missions where we do other things. We are on mission every week in this church, all the time. Mission, mission, mission. And so, anyway, good job for you. We love it. 1.2 million this year is amazing. Let's keep doing that. We took in 50 new members this last year. We baptized 48. 48. That is amazing. I mean, it's like, you look at just a symbol of the mission, man. It's when we baptize people, it's like, okay, there it is. Life changed. God doing His thing. Lots of people finding place in community through groups. Thank you, Suzanne, wherever you are, for doing such a great job with our groups and helping people get connected. We appreciate you. Let me just run down a list, just so you know, of other ways that this building especially gets used during the week. It's not just for us. It's for a lot of people. The Auburn High School and Junior High Show Choir were here. We hosted them. Big math competition that happens every year happens right here. The Spelling Bee, I don't know if you read that in the paper, that was here. Esperanza Dance Class, I'm just going to run through these. BCOM Yard Sale, APAC, Al-Anon, Recovery Chicks, Big House. We host 3 events for Big House that supports foster families. Alabama Pre- and Post-Adoption Connections were here. Girl Scouts, Project Linus. If Gathering was here. Our Awakening Tour Worship Night. Embrace Church had their Vision Night dinner here. Grace Church had their celebration dinner here. This is random. We had 2 Life Flight helicopters land in our parking lot so they could take somebody out of here. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen watching that happen. But anyway, that's not something I anticipated our church ever being used for, but it is. And then also, some of you know this about what happens here, and some of you don't. Our Foundations preschool is fantastic. Where's Amy Baxter? Amy, stand up. Stand up. No, stand up. She runs our Foundations preschool, and she has an amazing team of people who work with her to make a great experience for our children back here, and it is awesome, and you should be proud of that. And we're proud of you, Amy, for what you do back there. Your husband, Franklin, who keeps this building going, he's pretty amazing too, but yeah, you could thank him too. No, you really should thank him. Like, that poor boy is up here at times when he didn't need to be up here. He's at all hours of the night and weekends, and we had a water line break and flooded our offices the other day. I mean, he's just always doing something. We love him. We love both y'all. Y'all do a lot of work around here. So anyway, that's just a lot of stuff that happens around here that also is going on. Like, I love that this place gets used by the community and that we can also support all the organizations in town and be a part of what's happening there. Do you love that too? Yes, okay, good. I just want to make sure we're all together on that one. So let me take a turn now and kind of talk a little bit more about like what we've been talking about over this last year related to Dream 2020, some ideas that we're having and all that kind of stuff. And again, this theme that we've been in for the last month on Sunday mornings of immeasurably more, we have loved that. It has been so good to just think about immeasurably more, God. We know you can do it, and we want you to do it. And that's really been informing kind of how we've been thinking about the future and what God wants to do. And that verse that was on the video there, Ephesians 3, has been such a guiding verse. And I pray that you, being rooted and established in love, may have power together with all the Lord's holy people to grasp how wide and long and high and deep is the love of Christ, to know this love surpasses knowledge, that you may be filled to the measure of all the fullness of God. And I just love the way Paul said that to the church of that day. And he's just saying it to Cornerstone Church today that, I want you to have power, Cornerstone. And I want you to be together, and I want you to be unified. And I want you to be moving forward in the power of Jesus Christ. And I want you to be full. I want you to have the fullness of God. Like, we don't even comprehend what that means, man, but we want it. We want the fullness of God in our lives individually and then collectively as a church so that we can pour out everything God wants to do in this community. And so that's kind of been our guiding and sort of theme verse, and it is with power that we want to move forward. So just thinking about that, just want to give you a Dream 2020 update here. Before I do that, I want to ask our executive team members, if you're on our executive team, would you please stand up for just a minute? Quickly, there we go. Hey, you need to thank these people. These are folks who give a lot of time and energy and prayer and passion to this church, kind of behind the scenes, helping make sure that everything, including our finances and our ministries, are moving in the right direction. They're having to spend a little extra time thinking through this whole Dream 2020 process, and they really give a lot of themselves. They love this church, and they love what we're doing, and they are looking forward to leading us into that future, and so I appreciate that. If you're a staff person here and just in here, would you stand up for just a minute? If you're on staff here, would you stand up? We may not have many in here. Would you just thank them for what they do around here? You are blessed with an amazing staff, and we don't even hardly have half of them in here right now. There's a lot of them who are working right now, but we appreciate them so much, and it is such just a beautiful thing to work alongside them and to watch them do what they do. They really do give above and beyond what they take home in their pay around here, I guarantee you that. And they give of their heart to serve in the ministry here. So anyway, okay, so we've collected and sort of condensed all the feedback from our conversations in the fall that we had after Dream Night in the fall, from our ET conversations, just thinking about and dreaming about what God wants to do, from our staff, from me, just like what is God welling up in us, and have sort of put this under some major headings. And here's the deal with what I'm about to tell you, though, because we're not to January yet, so none of this is solidified. This is just kind of where we are right now at this point in the dreaming process. Just some things that are coming up out of conversation that we're paying attention to as we look toward 2020. So let me just kind of list these out and explain them a little bit. Here's one thing that we were hearing a lot. It had to do with discipleship here at this church, and kind of like what we're calling a discipleship pathway. Now, we have worship groups and serving, and we have ways for you to plug in and be discipled and grow in your faith here, but we're kind of thinking, what else could we do in the future to genuinely wrap around this whole idea of raising the spiritual temperature here at our church? We're trying to get clarity on what that might look like. This is This is not a wish. This is going to happen, by the way. We've already decided. We're going to be working on a discipleship pathway, but how that looks, we're trying to figure out. But a clear process and pathway of discipleship, so that when you come here to this church, you go, I know that's step one, and that's step two, and this is exactly how I grow in my faith here at this church. And so that could look like a series of classes, for example. And we've done classes here before, and they were effective. And so we're looking at what does it look like to run a series of classes that would happen maybe on a Sunday afternoon or at some point that kind of suits everybody's schedule, that we do some things like knowing Christ. In other words, who is He and how can I know Him? That meets our mission, doesn't it, of leading people to know and serve Jesus. Growing in Christ. Growing in my understanding of serving, like my spiritual gifts. How do I employ those? How do I use those here at this church and in the world? What does it look like to plug in and serve here at this church? What does it look like to go overseas on a mission trips? I mean, who knows? But having a clear series of pathway that will help people intentionally grow in their faith. You remember we talked about intentional faith development? That word intentional is important. And we want to make it more of an intentional process that we'll be working on. And so that's going to require planning, that's going to require preparing to make something happen that works on a regular basis. And so that's something that we have sitting out in front of us, and we're excited about that because really, when we raise the spiritual temperature of this whole church, of all of us, it informs everything else we want to do, doesn't it? It's a game changer when our faith collectively grows and we become more open to what God wants to do. It's like, man, who knows what God will do through us, what visions He'll well up in our hearts and minds, right? So anyway, we know that is an important thing that we want to do. We're looking at Auburn University kind of in a different way. We've always had a college ministry, and because some of you are connected to Auburn University, we have professors and administrators and certainly students that attend here. But what else can we do? Like, we have the privilege of living in a college town. Like, not everybody has that kind of thing going on there. Like, we get to shape people, and especially thinking of students, who will leave here and go to places around the world. We don't have to go to the world necessarily to affect the world. We can just reach that university and affect the world by doing it that way. You see what I'm saying with that? Like, so we've been thinking, what else can we do to impact the university? What else can we do to work with professors? If you're a professor over there, we might need to be talking to you in this next year. How can we engage with professors over there so that we can help you be encouraged in your faith and be a light in that university? Sometimes it's hard to be a believer on a secular campus like that. But how can we do that? Or the administration there, maybe we could host lunches on campus and we could bring y'all together and we could do a short devotion and pray for the campus together. I don't know, something like that. Also, because at the end product is how can we then reach those students? One thing that Marcus has been talking about a little bit with our college students is we kind of like to see more mentoring happening with our students. And what that might look like is if you've ever been a part of our church at the time when we were adopting college students, and we had families adopting college students and sort of being their home away from home, like your parents away from your parents, because a lot of students come here from who knows where in the world, and they're kind of isolated and they need connection. Well, it'd be kind of like that, but at another level. Because the thing that we've loved about our connection with the students is when non-college adults are mentoring these college students as they go through their 4 years here. Sometimes they just need to talk to somebody about things going on in their life, and they can't talk to their parents necessarily. Or maybe there's just a genuine disconnect from their parents, but they're struggling here. And they sure would love to have somebody they could go to and talk with. That'd be great. And then that person mentors them spiritually and just helps them grow in their faith. Maybe also we could do something more practical, like we could help them with their career. Like we've got somebody here who's in the career of engineering. Maybe you've got an engineering student that would sure love to talk to somebody in the field who also is a believer, right? And they can make that connection. So maybe we could have kind of a bank of people who are in certain professions who say, yeah, I would love to mentor a college student in the career field that I am in and that they're looking at coming into. Some of it may be, you don't need to be in this career. Maybe it's helping them find another career, but I don't know. But anyway, helping them try to figure out their pathway. What does it mean to follow God's will as I'm choosing my career? Stuff like that's big. It's big. I know. I got 3 boys doing it, so I understand. But that would be awesome, wouldn't it? What a great way to connect with college students. So anyway, Auburn University, we know that it's part of this community. It kind of sits over there as this big old thing unto itself, and yet it's part of the community. So how can we do more of that? We'd love to see that happen. Technology. Technology is something that, as I read sort of these church gurus who talk about kind of the future and where things are going, it's like, man, if you're not embracing technology as a church, you're behind. You're losing. Now we do that pretty well here. We do embrace technology, but like I think there's another level that we need to get to that would genuinely be an outreach in so many ways. Like one thing that we discovered is Facebook Live. How many of you have watched our service on Facebook Live? Holy cow! Are y'all coming to church? Or like, what's funny is Scott has noticed some of you are. He knows if you're watching. By the way, he's like Santa. He knows. And so if you're watching it in here during the service, he knows that, and some of you are. Why? We're right here. It's okay. Put your phone down. No, I'm just kidding. But it's amazing how many people connect through Facebook Live. Well, I don't know. Maybe they saw it coming. I didn't see it coming. And the thank yous that we get from people who are sick or who have to be away at work, and they love like tracking with us. They want to stay in with the series. They want to be a part of their church when they're not here. So that's been great. So what can we do? How can we improve that experience? How can we open that up to more people? Podcasts. We're looking at potentially doing a weekly podcast that you could download and that you could listen to. And we're saying weekly. We're not sure how often. Again, we haven't worked all this out, but podcasts are something that I know I listen to a lot of podcasts. It'd be great to hear from your church, wouldn't it? Like a devotion thought, something related to the sermon, something on the inside that we're talking about, maybe Dream 2020 related, that you can go, that's good to know. But you can stay connected kind of on a weekly basis through a podcast. That may be something. These videos that we do, that Scott works so hard on and others, we want to sort of open that up a little bit more. Now, that's going to take more of a team effort because we can't put all that weight on Scott, but we're working on that because we know that video is an awesome way to tell a story. It's just a great way to tell a story because we can tell it in here like tonight or on a Sunday morning, and then that video can live online. And more people can watch it if they weren't able to be here. If you're like, oh my gosh, you can find somebody, you're like, you need to go on our website and watch that video. It was amazing to hear their testimony. It's just a tool that God uses to share the testimonies of His people so that others can be inspired, right? That's why we love those stories. We want to hear people's stories. So we'd love to see more of that happen. Increase and improve our social media impact. Love it, hate it, doesn't matter. That genie's out of the bottle. Social media is a thing. We need to embrace it. And especially I think about our next generation coming up. Like it's only going to grow that particular avenue of communicating. So how can we redeem social media for the Lord, right? And how can we leverage it so that more people can come to know Him? Now, it's kind of a thing to manage social media, by the way. It's a thing. I don't know how else to describe it. It's just a thing. It's like something you got to do. You have to manage that well. And so we know the impact of Facebook and Instagram and stuff like that. But it kind of takes somebody to coordinate that and get the message out really well. And so maybe in the future, we need to be looking toward having somebody who manages all of that. Like a responsibility that they have is making sure that we're out there in a good way, right? That is helpful and that gets our mission out there. So anyway, that's just something else that we're talking about in just sort of in that area of technology. Okay, multiplication. You've heard this before. This is just such a part of who we are. We were a church plant, right? We planted Embrace Church. We also were a part of planting the church in Buloba, Uganda. Like we get multiplying. Multiplication should be a part of the church, right? Like that's how the church continues to grow, when it multiplies. Healthy things grow and multiply. So that sits in our DNA. And so we're trying to figure out what does it look like to keep multiplying as a church. Is that in this community, Auburn is booming up in that northwest area. Don't know, but that's happening. I've thought, my connection to Asbury Seminary, the seminary that I went to, their MDiv program has now a big focus on church planting. We offer a residency program here. We don't offer one in church planting, but maybe we could, where we bring an MDiv student here. They go through a 2-year residency with us, and then we send them out to plant a church. Then we take another resident. You see what I'm saying with that? And then we can decide at what level we want to support those plants as they go out. That could be here in our area, could be in our state, could be out just somewhere in the world. But I think being involved in church planting is just a part of who we are. And so how can we keep making movements like that happen? Okay. Next generation impact. I feel like I don't even have to talk about this because we get this so much. Children, youth, college, how can we continue to reach them with the love of Jesus Christ, raise them up, teach them how to serve, and send them out? Kind of along with that is helping make families strong. Like really strengthening our marriages, strengthening our family unit so that our kids can also be discipled and challenged at home. Because like I always say, we only have your kids here for a little bit of time. It's a very small percentage compared to what you have them in your home. Most of it should be happening at home, and we should be supplementing that here. But how can we continue to strengthen families and marriages in our community? All right, and then this thing right here, local community impact. We love what we do in Uganda, and we love what we do in Nicaragua. But you know what? We're working on our yes here locally. You know, what does that look like? How can we right here in our own hometown, our home area, make a maximum impact through this church? And you know, one thing that we've discovered is that we have a real heart, no big surprise here, for foster families and also for special needs families. And, you know, that's something that we're sort of like dipped our feet in the water of, and we'd love to sort of open that up some more. What does it look like to even make a greater impact in that way? And, you know, I was looking at Charles Ballard up there on the video with like 20 kids. It wasn't 20, but it seemed like 20 kids in his lap, you know. Like he and Amy are doing it. They are fostering these kids. And, you know, I'm thinking like, man, you want to talk about immeasurably more. Good grief. When you bring a child into your home and you say, you know what, I am going to commit to loving this child as my own child. I'm going to give them a wonderful home. And I'm going to model what Christian faith looks like. And I'm going to try to be really patient and loving as I do that with sometimes some very difficult children who wear you out. Like that's a big deal. I mean, you want to talk about evangelism. Holy cow. I mean, that is awesome. And then the potential to adopt that child into your family and to change their life forever. That's pretty amazing. And I know it's not easy. And the same thing goes for our families of special needs children. It can be tough, you know. It can be tough. And how can we come alongside and support them? So we're trying to figure out, you know, what does that look like? And what ways can we be reaching out even more to families like that? And how could we maybe even do events like, you know, our trunk or treat? We love our trunk or treat every year. It attracts so many people from this community, but what would it look like if we did some component of that maybe for special needs families? I don't know. We're just thinking through things like that. You know, how can we do events that might help and gather people together? Also, just related to kind of like how can we go out and impact this community through regular work teams. We've never had just regular work teams that are out in the community on a weekly basis, repairing homes, you know, fixing wheelchair ramps, all this kind of stuff. We'd love to see more of that happen. You know, as Bart was talking about on the video, he's kind of led a team that's done that. So, Bart, no pressure, but you got to get about 10 teams put together, so good luck with that. Same thing with our emergency response trained people. Matt Ricks in our church has done that. Matt, where are you? He is right there in the middle. I think Randy Stevens has been trained before, so, you know, we're going to be, you know, calling on that. We'd love to see more of those emergency response teams because whenever a disaster happens, tornado, hurricane, you know, you can't get in there unless you're credentialed to do anything right off the bat. And we'd love to be able to go right off the bat and start doing things like cutting trees down and cleaning up and helping people sort of get their lives put back together as quickly as we can. It was so great to send money and be a part in that way, but I love like the person going and doing something. So anyway, we're going to look at what that kind of looks like. And I think that another thing that we just love in terms of what we could do here in this community is more off-site. It's great that we bring people here. This is home base, and we should do that. But we should do that so that we can go out there and do more. Like the days when we leave here and go out and do a serve day, I've heard so much response from that. Being out, praying in the community, doing things for businesses, helping our community. That was big. So what does it look like to do more of that or off-site worship experiences? Just being out in the community, I think, says a lot about our desire to not just be about us, but to genuinely be about what's going on in the Auburn, Opelika, Greater Lee County area. You know, how can we just continue to make more of an impact here in this area that we live and serve and love and our kids go to school in and all that? Do you agree with me on that? Should we do that? I think we should. Yeah, we should make a lot more of that happen here. So yes, let's do that. Okay, so these are just a few of the big areas that after all of our conversations we've come around. You know, there are some big ideas in this mind that I'm not going to share with you tonight yet because I don't want to over-promise and under-deliver, frankly. But, you know, there are some things that I think we could do, and we just need to investigate some of those bigger things a little bit more before we talk about them here. But just know we're hard at work and we're praying for God to do immeasurably more. One more thing that we're going to have to do in this next year is we need to do a building assessment. we need to look at it in two ways. One, we've got to do a little work on hometown here. This building is about to be 15 years old, and it's starting to show its age, and the roof is leaking a little bit, and we've got some water that's busting out of the seams, and we've got stuff that needs to be painted, parking lot needs to be worked. Anyway, so we need to work on what I call Jerusalem, kind of like this is us. So this year we're going to be looking at what those needs are. Also, we're just going to be looking at our space needs. Like, what is it going to take to continue doing ministry in this building? What will it take if we decide to do immeasurably more? What else are we going to need to do as a part of this campus right here? So again, haven't made any decisions on that. Not sure what that's going to look like, but that will be a part of our conversation as we're heading into next January. I mean, we're just really 11 months away from our 20th anniversary. Man, this train is coming. I feel like we've been talking about this for a while, but now it's suddenly going to be here, and I love it. I'm excited about it. So that's kind of where we are. Those are the things that we've been thinking about. Along this journey, by the way, as we've been talking about where we want to go on a trajectory and a heading that we've had, we've also just been talking about who we are as a church. And I just think it's interesting, and I made this list after talking with our staff and our executive team, of just like our identity and desires. And it kind of looks like this. We're a generous church, okay? I think we've figured that out. An authentic church. We love being authentic. Just, this is who we are. We want to do things excellently, but we just want to be us. Family on mission. I love that idea, that we're a family. When you come here, to be a part of a family is important, but a family that's on mission, doing things outside of this building. We have a strong desire to help those in need, a desire to reach the next generation, love for those outside the church, love going out to reach our community. We believe in reaching the nations beyond our own, reaching the least and the last as the gospel calls us to. Those are just things that we are, who we are and what we want to do. Auburn especially is going to do nothing but explode demographically. Since 2010, our population was 53,753. This past year, it's now 63,973. That's 10,000 in just a span of 8 years. That is nothing compared to where it's going to go. And so it's going to do nothing but grow. And you know what? A lot of the growth is actually going to come from some international folks. International students are going to be here at the campus as they have made a commitment to reaching international students and increasing a lot of that there. And so we're going to have to figure that out. What does that mean for us? How can we engage that particular segment of our population? And lots of things are going to change this community, but how can we be prepared to reach more people? And as I was praying about these kinds of things, I just kind of wrote down during my prayer time just this: reach the thirsty in our community. Think of our community like a desert. The ground is cracked with brokenness and isolation and daily struggle. Children with needs, parents carrying burdens, people with no community, students who are stuck and need help, people who are hungry and thirsty for the Word and who want to be used for something greater. And that's how I'm thinking about it. Every community kind of looks good on the outside, but underneath, I think there's this sense of this weariness that people experience, And I wrote there, we want to pour out the life-giving, satisfying, healing, living water of Jesus into the cracks of our community. And we want people to find a place here at this church. And we want to be a shelter from the storms of life. The city on a hill, like Jesus talked about. A city that you can't avoid. Like when you come here, you're like, man, I just can't get away from Cornerstone. They're doing this and they're doing that. They're reaching people. And you can't miss it. That Jesus is evident through the people of this church. And it's kind of like the challenging question that sometimes churches get. If your church were to disappear from your community tomorrow, what would change about the community? What would suffer? What would people go, oh no, Cornerstone's not here. Now this is not going to happen and that's not going to happen. What does that look like for us? And that's another question that we're looking at. And how can we just be more like Jesus here? You get what I'm saying? How can we do that? And so, a little bit over my time here, but just this last part of Ephesians 3 that says, now to him who is able to do immeasurably more than all we ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us, to him be glory in the church throughout all generations, forever and ever. That's what we're praying. That's what we're asking for. So here's what I want to do tonight. We've got a little bit of time here. You have those two cards on your table, and I want you to look at those right now. If you will look at, is the orange card the dream card? Okay, well don't look at that one. Look at the blue one. The blue card has a question on there. It says this: who are 3 people you know who don't go to church and or don't know Jesus? Write down their names, commit to pray for them, and invite them to church or your group or to dinner or to all three. Who's somebody you know in your world that you can just think in your mind, man, I know, at least I know they don't go to church. Maybe I'm not sure about their faith yet. If you don't know three, write down one. If you know two, write down two. The number is not the most important thing, but who is somebody that tonight you could say, I choose to commit to pray for these people, and if I have an opportunity, I'm going to invite them. Because being invitational, right, that is an important part of that radical hospitality that we talked about. All right, next card, your orange card. That one, by the way, that's a card that you're just going to do for yourself and you're going to take away with you tonight, okay? If those people don't come to mind tonight, then go home and pray about them. Next card is our dream card. This is the question I asked this morning. If God said to you, I want to give your community 3 things that would change people's lives for the better, but you have to decide what they are, what would you say? Like I said, if God came to you and said, as you look around this community and you're thinking, oh my gosh, if God would just deal with this problem or that issue, if he could just snap his fingers and make that go away or deal with that pain or that, man, I wish he would do that. So what are those things that you would say about you look around your world or this community that might be on that list? Here's what I want you to do. We're going to give you a few minutes here to write those down. Again, don't get stuck on 3. If you're just like, all right, here's one big one, great. If you need to take them away and think about it, that's fine. But what I'd love for you to do is once you've kind of written something down, I'd love for us to spend some time up here at the steps praying tonight as a group. I don't care if 300 people have to cram around these stairs. It would be awesome. So when you've written that down, just make your way up to the front here. Dustin and the band are going to play a little bit and give you some time and space. I want you to pray about our church and our future and these prayer cards that you're filling out, all right? So here we go. You ready? Let's spend some time doing that right now.